You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show. Today, Islamic investing in Canada with financial consultant Assad. But first, some news headlines. Canada begins to phase out single-use plastics. Report finds faith-specific services lacking in prisons. Calgary home becomes shelter for women and children. And Israel begins building high-tech wall in northern West Bank. And now the details. Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault has announced Monday that Canada will ban the manufacture and importation of single-use plastics effective December this year. This includes plastic bags, styrofoam takeout containers, cutlery, and ring carriers that hold cans together. Exceptions to straws are made for people with disabilities or in healthcare settings. The ban on selling these items comes into effect on December 2023. In a press release, the government says the new policy will eliminate an estimate of over 1.3 million tonnes of hard-to-recycle plastic waste. Guilbeault says the move is a, quote, historic step forward in reducing plastic pollution. Inmates struggle to practice their religion in Canadian prisons because of the privatization of chaplains, finds a new report. Islamic Family and Social Services Association, an Edmonton-based social services agency, published the report with the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Since the privatization of chaplaincy services in 2013, the report says faith-specific supports and resources are lacking for chaplains from minority religions. They also found the government's decision of outsourcing contracts to a single company to be unsustainable, with negative impacts on prisoners. The report urges a return to the previous model, where the Correctional Service of Canada provided contracts to specific faith communities. This required communities to hire, train, and oversee their chaplains. A Calgary-based charity has purchased their first home to serve as a shelter for women and children escaping domestic violence. Maskan, which in Urdu translates to a small, peaceful place of dwelling, is a shelter that offers culturally and religiously sensitive accommodations. This includes providing halal and vegetarian food, clothes, and support services in their own language. Funds to buy the home came from the community. The project manager says the shelter is needed for the many women who are reluctant to go to mainstream shelters where their specific needs are not accommodated. The Israeli Ministry of Defense started building a 45-kilometer-long, 9-meter-high concrete wall on the seam line yesterday in the northern West Bank. The ministry said in a statement on Twitter that it would build a huge concrete wall with high technology. They also said the barrier will replace the fence that was built about 20 years ago. In June 2002, Israel began building a wall on West Bank lands mostly made of cement, with some fences and barbed wire, under the pretext of preventing Palestinians from infiltrating. The Palestinian Authority and the United Nations condemned the move. And that's it for the news. A lot of Muslims in Canada are looking for halal options to manage their money. Our next guest from Assad Wealth Management, Assad, will help us understand this in Canada. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallahu khairan for having me.
Wa alaikum, thanks for joining us. This is a really important topic. I know people really care about their money, and a lot of Muslims care about their money being what we call Sharia compliant or compliant with Islamic law, or the other word we use for that is halal. But before we talk about those parts of your service, why don't we just do a little bit of Wealth Management 101? What exactly does that mean?
Excellent question. Wealth Management 101 is, I'll refer to as making sure you have a plan. When it comes to investing, that's the first thing that we always look at. But wealth management is a little bit more than just investing. You want to make sure that you actually have a written financial plan, which includes aspects such as retirement. How old am I? how much money am I making? How much money am I spending? When am I going to retire? And how much money am I going to get? What
Mm.
does inflation look like and things like that? You also want to make sure that you have a written financial plan for your estate, which means what happens when I pass away and who gets my wealth, having a will, a power of attorney, and a personal directive. You
Mm.
also want to make sure that you have an education plan for your children. You also want to make sure, in addition to that, that you have a strategic investment plan that's done in a halal way. And of course, let's not forget this tax planning. In Canada, a lot of our wealth goes to Revenue Canada. It seems to be our first beneficiary. We want to make sure that you leave as much wealth as possible to the ones you love and not to Revenue Canada. So it's a comprehensive way of looking at different aspects,
Right.
not just investments.
You've listed off a whole host of things. I don't know if in our short interview we'll have time to pick apart all of them. Let's start with the Islamic financing. I'm sure a lot of people here think that you just can't invest in an Islamically compliant way in Canada. So share with us how it's possible.
You know what? It's a very true myth, but that has changed significantly, I would say, over the last few years. There has been tremendous amount of innovation in this field. There's a lot of companies that are doing very good work and having the halal products available to us, to the advisors, and to the general public. Halal investment, investing your money in a Sharia compliant way, is way more easier than it is today in 2022 than it has ever been previously. From the likes of Wahid, SP Funds, Wealth Simple here in Canada, as well as advisor like myself. Halal, in the way to invest your money halal way, is actually quite a bit easier than a lot of people think. It does take a little bit of a research, a little bit of a digging a little bit deeper than
Mm.
just walking into your bank and asking for those. But it's actually a lot easier than it has been. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I can tell you this is the best time it's ever been. And there's more innovation and more products coming on.
So let's pretend that I'm somebody with money to invest, which I'm not, but let's pretend that I am. And I come to you with, I don't know, I don't even know what you would take as a minimum, but let's pretend, I don't know, let's say 100,000. How
Yeah.
should I invest this for me Islamically? What are going to be the steps that you do?
Absolutely. So the first thing we do is we want to make sure that we get to know you a little bit better. I always tell people we work backwards. So the first thing I always ask my clients and prospect is that, what is the purpose of this money? What is it are you trying to do? Are you trying to buy a house in the next 2 to 3 years? Is this money for your child's education? Is going to go to school the next 6 months? Are you using this money for retirement? Once
Mm.
we figure out what the goal is, then according to that we create a portfolio for that particular client. And this portfolio is a combination of what we call ETF, exchange traded funds, as well as individual stocks that are fully vetted by a Sharia compliant supervisory board.
Mm.
In each and every aspect of these investments are checked to make sure they meet the criterias that are laid out to be halal.
So let me just ask you to expand on that in a non-technical way if possible, but you're
Yeah.
looking at companies, at their stocks. How do you decide this company is or isn't Sharia compliant?
Excellent question. There's been actually over 40 years of work done by our scholars from the likes of IOFI, which have set up some groundwork for us to determine if a company is halal or not. So the first thing you got to look at is, what is the company in and what kind of business is this company in? We want to make sure we avoid anything that has to do with the obvious stuff, such as gambling, pornography, tobacco, weapons, financial companies such as the bank and insurance companies,
Mm.
media, advertising, and things like that. You want to, avoid the obvious haram stuff.
Mm.
But you have to go one step further. You want to make sure that the guts of these companies are also halal as well. This is
Mhm.
what we call level 2 compliance. So level 1 compliance is what we call business sector compliance.
Mm.
Level 2 compliance, what we call accounting based compliance. In here, we want to make sure that even though the company might be surface level halal, but it has a lot of debt. So we want to make sure the debt to equity of the company is in line and less than 33%. We
Mhm.
also want to make sure that revenue of these companies are making from the haram sources. Now, again, there's really no truly 100% halal investment companies that exist. Oh, sorry, companies that exist.
Mm.
So we want to give them some leeway. We want to make sure the revenue from non-compliant activities is less than 5%.
Mhm.
So those are some other criteria that we use. The good good thing is that you don't need to figure this out all on your own. Although you can, there are actually apps available. There are actually products that are actually fully vetted for these criterias. So all you have to do is grab it from the shelf, talk to an advisor who understands these very, very well, and the way you go. So that work that was manually
Done
done.
all that. I mean, obviously that's a lot of work, but then is there anything left? It just seems like that wouldn't leave a whole lot of profitable, investments left. Does it leave enough for people
Oh,
to do?
tremendous amount. A lot of companies meet this criteria.
Mm.
I'll use an example here: the S&P 500. S&P 500 is the 500 biggest companies in US. I know these are the biggest names in the world. And if you take these two criteria as level 1, level 2 compliance, and you apply that to the 500 companies, you're left somewhere between 250 and 300 companies that meet the criteria of being halal. Absolutely.
Well, that's good to know. Now, I know you were based in Calgary. Does your company help someone in other parts of Canada, or is it very provincial based, the rules?
No, absolutely. We're actually almost Canada-wide. We're working on this. So we're fully licensed in the province of Alberta, BC, Ontario, Nova Scotia right now. If somebody is not located in these provinces, that's not a problem for us. It's very easy to get our licensing done in any of the provinces in Canada, and we're able to help any prospects or clients that are looking to invest their money in a halal way.
Well, we don't have a lot of time left. We won't be able to go through all the things you said at the beginning that are part of wealth management, but maybe we could just touch a little bit on the estate planning, because that's something also that's very important to people doing the wills. And I know that our local mosque is always emphasizing get an Islamic will, get an Islamic will. The rules are very complicated, and I think they're provincial based. How do you do the will planning with people?
Yeah, so number one is very, very important to keep in mind that your first beneficiary is not your children, not your family, it's the Revenue Canada. You have to have a very comprehensive and complex tax planning in place to make sure that you pass as much of that wealth possible to your next generation. I'm going to use a quick example here, and maybe we don't have enough time here, but let's just say when you retire, I'm going to use an example. You're 80 years old right now, you got $1 million saved up in an RSP account, for example, and it's not abnormal to have that kind of wealth when you're that old. Now, when you pass away, all your $1 million of RSPs will go to your spouse tax free. And when she passes away, it will come to you tax free. But when the last person passes away, pretty much half of that is taxed. You're going to lose about 49 to 50% of that money to Revenue Canada before your children get it. That's the rules. That's in existence right now, and nobody can change that. So in addition to make sure that you have a will, which dictates what happens to your money, who you want the money to go to. Of course, you want to make sure that it goes to your children, things like that. But tax planning comes prior to making sure you have a will. So, in addition to making sure you have a will, you want to have a personal directive, which means what happens if I'm incapacitated, unable to make decisions for my health. That's where personal directive comes in, and then you want to have a power of attorney, which is somebody that you assign to make financial decisions for you. So, a will deal with when you passed away. If you're not dead yet, but you're still incapacitated, not able to make decision, a power of attorney, personal directive. Now, doing this in a halal way, Alhamdulillah, there's actually a company that just recently launched, and they're doing Islamic wills in Ontario, and they're looking to expand into the rest of Canada. But there's a lot of lawyers who are vetted in understanding the Islamic law as well as the law of the land, and bringing those two together to create a will for you to make sure you achieve the goals in this world and hereafter, inshallah.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. It's all very complicated, and some people don't often want to talk about wills because it's related to dying, but obviously extremely important. We thank you very much for this brief introduction to us. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Jazakallah khair for having me.
Thank you for watching Canadian Muslim News. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.